Well, welcome back to the Burner Turner Show. Once again, it's your host, Wayne Turner. On today's episode, got a very, very special guest in here. And it's not someone from my 96 championship team, but he is from one of the Kentucky National Championships teams, and I'm blessed to have him on my show. But before we get into this conversation and I introduce him, make sure you subscribe to the Burner Turner Show and you follow the Field of 68 Media Network. And also, you can follow me on Twitter. My handle's at the Burner, and also on Instagram at Coach Burner, and watch live interviews on the Media Network 68. But right about now, my host today is none other than the MOP of the 1978 National Championship game. I call him the goose that ate Duke. Because, 41 points in the championship game, that's a player's dream. And this guy's just carried his team on his back. I mean, what can I say? Consensus All-American on every cylinder. I had the pleasure of meeting him a few years ago. I've always heard about him. I thought he was a ghost for a minute, but then he appeared. And, I'm just very, very blessed to have him on my show. And Jack, the Goose Givens, is in our presence right now. Jack, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. This is definitely a blessing to have you on.
Well, Wayne, thanks so much, man. I already know I learned something already, and that is anytime I go on a speaking engagement, I'm going to take you with me to introduce me, man. You make me sound good even to me, man. I'm like, daggone it, man. Who is this guy? But thanks so much, man. It's good to be on your show for sure.
No, definitely great to have you. Spoke to you a few weeks ago, and it definitely took me back to I think it was the day we were all at Rupp Arena and all the legends came back, and I remember they were saying Jack, the Goose Givens, was going to be there, and I was like, wow, I've been hearing about this guy my whole career. Seeing the clippings, when they show the highlights, and I get to finally meet this guy, and I remember taking the picture with you. Definitely always been a fan of what you did for the university. And, hearing about the 1978 team, even when I was in school, was the last team to win it before my 1996 team won it. And, they just always talked about how great that team was. And, Joby Hall, who I believe coached you, would always be at our practices. What was it like to, be coached by the great Joby Hall? I mean, he literally came in and watched us play pickup almost every day and evaluated each one of us. So I know he loved the game.
Yeah. Coach Hall was, I don't know that he ever got the credit he truly deserves. I mean, you've been around sports long enough to know that one of the most difficult things in sports is to follow a legend. And of course, he came in, took over for Adolph Rupp at a time when a whole lot of people didn't want Rupp to leave the university. He had to leave because at the time there was a mandatory retirement age. He reached that age, so they had to kind of, I don't want to say force, but they had to get him to resign, which he did. And went into retirement. So Coach Hall came in. He had to fight a lot of elements back then, man, that were just not very good. And so I think he came in, did a great job. He was able to, teach us enough and instruct us enough and lead us to a national championship, which was every year that goes by, you realize, and you'll be able to kind of recognize this, is every year that goes by, you realize more and more how truly difficult it is to win a championship. So to go through that and to go through that, the University of Kentucky is a very special honor. Few of us hold it. You have two, and that's awesome. But a few of us hold that. And it's something that I have grown to cherish and to appreciate as I get older and older.
Yeah, and I feel like, man, shoot, anybody who has a statue and and had a place named after them definitely was great. And for them to honor you like that at Kentucky, I mean, that's really big time because they don't just do that for nothing. You know, you had to be, very special. And Coach Joby Hall definitely, I felt like he was another coach, kind of behind the scenes for us because he would give us tips and things like that. And, honestly, like you said, like I didn't even realize, what coach was talking to me, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
looking back now, like, was I really paying it? I must have been paying attention to something.
Well, and Coach Hall is a real lover of not just the game, but he's a lover of the student athlete. And when you're playing for a guy, it's hard to really get a hold of that because particularly back in our day, and I'm older than you, so when I speak about our day, not even yours, but the programs were all about the coaching. I mean, it was about the coaches. It was the coaches because we had guys like Don Chaney and John Thompson and Coach Hall and Bobby Knight. And, we can go on and on with the magnitude, how big these coaches were. So the program's different than today because programs are more about the players than it is about the coaches. But back in those days, the coaches didn't want you to like them. The coaches wanted you to do what they said do. And they didn't care. They didn't want to hear, man, he's not respecting me. He's trying to diss me. He's this and that, the other that I hear now. And I rub my head and I think, man, if them boys was back there with John Thompson, some of those guys and talking about disrespecting me as a player, man, it's just a totally different game. But that's the way it was back in the day. So Coach Hall, the thing he wanted was for everybody to max out on their talent. And the coaches back then did whatever they wanted to do to get you there. But he would do the same thing with you. He goes over now when he can to watch even the teams today. And he talks to Coach Calipari and says, man, you need to do this. And why don't you try that? And he's just that kind of basketball guy who grew up the hard way, grew up loving the game, and grew up loving the players.
And I know, it's been a while back since, you've played college basketball, but it brings to my attention, a lot of these younger kids, even today, they don't realize, there was no 3-point line,
Right.
There was no 3-point line in college basketball. And I mean, seeing the line now, I mean, I've seen you shoot, and you were out there. You know what I'm saying? Thinking about it now, I mean, you averaged 18 points that year, but I mean, that sounds like it could have easily been like 25 or.
Well, these guys now, you talk to them about not having the 3-point line and they automatically say, man, I'll never be on Sports Center because that's all they show is a dunk and a 3-point shot on Sports Center. So they wouldn't even play, man, if they didn't have a chance to be on Sports Center. But, you're talking about how many points I might have averaged. The thing that's really interesting is that we didn't have the 3-point line, but I don't know that we had a team while I was at Kentucky that averaged less than 84 points a game. I don't know. I mean, we didn't need the 3-point line. I mean, our championship game against Duke, 94-88, might be, I know it was at one time, but might still be the highest scoring championship game in NCAA history. We just made shots, Wayne. We had guys on the team and we went 7 or 8 deep and on any given night, we had guys who could fill it up, man, and who could score points. I mean, that's just the way it was. That 15 to 18, 14 to 18 foot jump shot that is almost vacated from the game today. I mean, that's the way we made a living. That's the way I made a living. I mean, we ran our offense, we set screens, we created opportunities for our teammates. And if a shot was there, and if you didn't take it, that was just like a turnover because I've got Roby and I've got Phillips and I've got James Lee. I got these guys setting screens for me, and I got Macy delivering the pass, and Macy's looking at me like, man, that's an assist for me. You know, come on, I got to get my name on the stat sheet one way or the other, man. I mean, that's an assist. Shoot the ball and make a shot, you know. And I mean, you had guys on your team that if you weren't playing hard in their mind, or if you weren't making shots, or if you weren't giving them the basketball, they had the right to come up to you and say, Wayne, man, I was wide open over here, man. Come on, give me the ball. I mean, that's just the way the game was now. Nowadays, these guys, man, if you go up to them and say, man, you got to set a screen, I'm coming off, you got to get me open. That's the only way I'm going to get a shot. Guys want to fight now. Guys want to say, man, don't be disrespected. I mean, it's just a different game. But we played good, solid, fundamental basketball. We dribbled when this was dribbling and not this, you know, turning the ball over and all of that. I mean, that's just the way the game was and the way it's played now. It would have been nice to have the three-point line, but we didn't need the three-point line to score points.
No, I totally agree with you. And, you know, watching the games back then, you noticed it wasn't that many dribbles as well. I mean, the ball was always passed either inside out, you know, guys cutting. You know, the backdoor cut was very popular, you know, became popular then. And I got a chance to play for Coach Macy. And, you know, I really enjoyed, you know, the feedback and the advice that I got from him. Even though I was at the latter end of my professional career, just playing for him, knowing what he did at UK and playing with you, winning that championship, definitely, you know, made a connection there. But you said something about, you know, getting your name and, you know, on the ticker and, you know, on Sports Center and things like that. And, you know, now in today's world, you know, social media is so big.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the younger generation, I mean, it's almost like they care about social media. They can't live without it. I mean, I know it's been a while, and, you know, just think back then, like, how would you have handled that? I mean, these guys on Twitter, Instagram, the moment they do something great, you got to make a post and let it be known. I mean, what do you?
Yeah. And that's a good question, man. I probably, I guess, would have adjusted to the way it was, just like everybody does now. You know, but we did not. I mean, I looked at making a shot and winning a game as what I was there for. I didn't see any reason. I still don't see any reason to pump my chest and pat myself on the back just simply because I did what I was supposed to do. Now, the social media is great. I mean, it's a self-promotion. And I probably would have adjusted and used it as best I could. But I don't even use it much today, which of course is a sign of my age more so than anything else. It's just not something I'm used to. But I kind of, you know, I'm in football, you see a guy make a tackle and it's a regular old routine tackle and, you know, I'm the man. And, you know, it's just a different way of thinking. It works. And now it works for guys, and it gets some looks and it gets some retweets and all of this stuff that I guess they're trying to get. But I'm so thankful we didn't have that social media back in the day, man. I don't know what I would have done with it.
Yeah, I agree. I say that, you know, some of my teammates, I said, man, we would have been, and first of all, we wouldn't have been able to have it because we weren't allowed to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even read the paper, you know.
That's right.
We
That's
really
right.
did it. I can't believe we really did that, though. You know, this generation, they say, you know, I've been in situations where you couldn't have Twitter or Instagram, and they still did it. So.
Oh man, I remember Coach Hall wonder if I had a bad game, if I didn't shoot it well, or the first thing he would say to me is, "Yeah, you've been reading your press clippings, haven't you?" Said you've been reading your press clippings. Coach, I can tell you're not out here playing. Your head's big. You think you're this, you think you're that. So I'm with you, man. We would not have been allowed. And if we had put anything on there about the game, about this or that, we'd be running 5 o'clock the next morning. That's for sure.
Well, obviously Cats are off to a rough start this year, this current
Yeah,
team.
yeah.
They went through some things, I think, a couple days ago. You tell us about what's going on with the games? Like, have you heard anything about those games that's been postponed? The one against Texas, I believe, the
Yeah, yeah.
Big 12 SEC challenge that was supposed to happen and it got canceled.
Yeah, when I got the press release sent to me from the media department over at the university, I was kind of surprised it didn't say the game was canceled. It said excuse me, I was surprised it did say canceled and it didn't say postponed, because the postponement means that it's going to be played at some other time. Canceled mean that it's gone. And I don't think they will play that game again, which is unfortunate because Kentucky needed a win against a high profile ball club if they had any chance of making the dance, other than through the SEC tournament. And I would be really, really surprised if they do have an SEC tournament. So maybe they've already kind of written this season off as a missed opportunity to get to the dance. But the game Tuesday at Missouri will not be played Tuesday. I think it will be played Wednesday night. From what I understand, they're going to try to reschedule it for Wednesday night. Both teams are open, so they'll just push that one back one day. And then the rest of the games, unless something else flares up, will be played according to the schedule as it is. But that's all I've heard at this point. Chances are that game's going to be played Wednesday night as opposed to Tuesday night, the game in Missouri.
Okay. Well, wow. I mean, this COVID thing has affected a lot
Yeah, man.
of dynamics in this with everything. And I just hope that everyone's safe and first and foremost, and then, whatever they got to get back to playing, doing whatever they have to do.
I was
Thinking about this year's team, I actually like the personnel on this team. I know they haven't, played particularly well. The chemistry just looks like it hasn't been there.
mhm.
I want to ask you, because I'm big on, like, every time I see a team, I automatically find a player that I like. And
Mhm.
Brandon Boston's been one of the guys that stood out,
Mhm.
every time I watch the games. I mean, he's the one guy that's going downhill, when
Right,
he gets the
right.
ball. And I know he makes some mistakes, but he's the one that has the attraction to my eye, but he's also the one that seems to be, up and down. I mean, what do you make of Brandon Boston? Obviously he hasn't reached his potential, but do you think he's forcing it just a little too much, or is that just his game?
Well, you know, the thing that I would say first about this particular ball club, and I know you'll agree with me because you learn the same way I learn, um, and that is, you can be coached, and coaches do a great job of explaining and teaching plays and all the things that coaches do. And John Calipari is one of the best. But the fact of the matter is, players learn how to play by going against guys who are better than they are. I mean, when you first came to Kentucky, you went against some men, and the only way you can get that is by having some guys with some experience, some guys who have been there a couple of years, maybe 3 years. I mean, I played my freshman year with 6 seniors on my ball club. And there's nothing. I don't care how much coaching you get. There's nothing like playing against guys who are better than you, who are competing day in and day out for the same minutes you want to try to get. And those guys are protecting their turf, and I'm trying to take their turf. And that's when you learn how to play. And there's no other way around it. I mean, there's no other way to get to where you want to be. And this team just simply doesn't have that. I mean, it was one of these, just a perfect storm where everything just piled up against Kentucky. They had no guys coming back except Brooks, and Brooks was hurt. So no one knew Coach Calipari's system. No one, these freshmen, Brooks and the like, Boston and the like, they came in and they were, instead of playing against, let's say, EJ, who was here last year, or even Richards and all of these guys and the guards who left, Hagens and those guys, instead of playing against them every day in practice, they're playing against walk-ons. Now you tell me that's a way a guy learns that there's a whole different speed, baby, from high school to college. There's a whole different speed. I mean, just think if they were coming in and going against you every day. I mean, how much faster would they learn? How much better would they be? Well, it's not there. So for a guy like Boston, who his whole life has been the guy to have the ball in his hands, the guy to score the points, the guy to, just because he's gifted, be able to recover and still block a shot from behind, just simply because he's always done it. It's natural for him to try to take that job on now. The problem is he's playing not against a walk-on, but he's playing against Wayne Turner as a senior. And the last thing Wayne Turner's going to let you do, young fella, is come in and take my turf. You're not going to do it. So they're just having to learn the hardest way to play on this level. And that is trying to figure out the speed difference, the quickness of the game, the knowledge that only a junior or a senior has. And that's what they're facing every night.
Yeah, I agree. It looks like that. And I mean, you could tell. And even with the previous teams, like you said, there was always someone that was there,
Mm-hmm.
that someone who was more players who came back, at least three or some that were already there. And even that championship team, 2012, I mean, you had Darius Miller as a senior, even though Anthony Davis was a freshman. There were people there. Terrence Jones came back for another year. Deron Lamb came back for another year. So, I've always just felt like, to compare this year's teams to those teams, they're definitely not the same in that sense, because those guys had people who were players, teammates who were there that could tell them, okay, this is, how coach is. This is what he wants. This is how practice goes. This is how you need to be every single day if you want to succeed here.
Hey, man, I'll tell you a quick story. Your listeners and your viewers might find just fun, but it was one of the best lessons I ever learned. I played behind a guy by the name of Kevin Greavy, and Greavy averaged 26 points a game his senior year, and I was trying to defend Grieve every day in practice. I was trying to get minutes by trying to get him not to make me look so bad that Coach Hall not even going to play me. And I averaged 10 points a game, so I got plenty of minutes, but I had to fight every minute. Well, one day Coach Hall was really getting on. I mean, he was calling Greavy every name in the book. He was all over him. He was chewing him, and I was sitting there, and I was sitting there, and I was thinking, man, he's just not playing that bad. I mean, in my eyes, so after Coach Hall finished and it was halftime, we went back out to go to a game, go back out and play. I went over to Greavy and I said, Grieve, man, this was early in my freshman career, early. I said, Grieve, man, I said, what was that all about? I mean, Greavy looked at me like I was crazy. And what you talking about, Goose? I said, Greavy, man, Kevin, how he get on you like that, man? He's giving you, and Greavy looked at me and said, Jack, what are you talking about? And I'm like, did I just see this or not, Greavy? He said, Goose, let me tell you something. He said, let me tell you something. because this is going to be you one day. He said, here's what you got to do. You go in the locker room after I leave. Don't take my seat, but you go in the locker room, you sit right in the middle on the front row, right in the middle, right in front of the blackboard, right in front of Coach Hall. I said, okay. He said, and when he gets in your face, you look him right in the eyes. He said, you look right at him and you nod every now and then, just nod your head. I said, okay, man. He said, but daggone it. He said, don't you listen to a damn word he says. He said, don't you listen to a word. He said, because if you listen to it, he said, let it go in one ear and come right out the other. He said, because if you listen to it, you're not going to be able to play here. Now, as a freshman, how am I going to learn that if I don't learn it from a guy who's been there and done that? So I'm just saying, for these young guys, when Calipari screams at them and gets on them and, jerks them this way and that way, they take it personal. So then they go in the hole and they're never going to be productive. So I think that's just the difference between having some vets who've been there, done that, as opposed to all these new guys, and nobody except Brooks knows what Calipari wants from them. And that's a tough adjustment.
No, it is. And I know we're coming up on time here. And I totally agree with you on that one, because I had that experience myself. And I had guys like Walter, Tony, and even Mark Pope, and even Jeff Shepard and the guys who had been juniors that year to come, each and every one of them, every time, I got, coach got on me. They came and said, hey, man, listen, don't listen to that. Keep playing. And it helped. It definitely helped. Moving forward with this team, just a couple more questions. They're in jeopardy right now. Obviously, they needed the Texas game. Probably won't happen. And they've been in a lot of close games with some, with ranked teams where they had the ability to win. So they've shown that they could compete, with top 25 teams, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Can they still what do they need to do to make a run and get to the tournament? I mean, as of right now, everybody's writing them off. Can they turn it around and bounce back and possibly get in the tournament at this point?
It's going to be tough. I mean, if you be truthful about it, it's going to be tough. Can it be done? Yes. Beating Texas would have been a good way to get this started, but either way, you're going to have to win out. You can't afford to lose one more game. One thing that the committee does take into consideration is a team that's playing well going into the dance. And if Kentucky wins the rest of the way out, that means beating Tennessee twice. That means beating Florida. That means, you got some games in there. So if you win the rest of the way, there's a possibility. But a win against Texas, a top 10 at that time rated team, they've lost a couple because they've had a lot of COVID issues as well. That could get it started. But the only way, and especially if there's not an SEC tournament, like I said, if the NCAA is going through so much to put these guys in a bubble and control the atmosphere of the games, I can't imagine them letting the conference tournaments go on and take a chance at getting more and more people infected. So they got to win them all, man. They can't let another one slide.
Okay, now this will be the last question. They have always talked about, there's talks about shooters. And Calipari doesn't recruit shooters. And, I disagree. I think he has recruited shooters in the past. I mean, how significant is that this year? I mean, we're not shooting it great, but I see potential shooters. They're not shooting it well, but do you think there's any shooters on this team?
Well, shooters are guys who make shots. I mean, everybody on the team. I mean, everybody can get out there and shoot it, but if you're not making them, in my mind, you're not a shooter. Now, you're right. There's no better shooter. When I look at just a pure shooter, a guy who has all the mechanics, a guy who has a quick release. I mean, Dante Allen is a shooter. There's no doubt about that. Anybody else who has that kind of form, has that kind of ability, I don't see it. All of them make one from time to time. I mean, Askew makes them from time to time, even though he's in a slump. BJ Boston makes them from time to time. Mintz makes them, and Mintz can shoot it. But if you're not making shots, it looks like you're not shooters. I think the problem with Allen is that everybody in the world knows he's a shooter. So when he's on the floor, he has guys running at him every time. It even looks like he's going to catch the ball. So he has to figure out now how to become a scorer, not just a shooter. Put the ball on the floor, take a dribble or two hard, pump fake, get to the hole, whatever it takes. Then teams won't run at him like that. But I think Calipari's going to need probably two more guys who can shoot the ball to get this team to where it's going to be. It's not going to happen this year, but in the future, it'd be nice to see that.
No, I agree. I've always thought they, had, like you said, you have to make the shots to be considered
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that they at least had the potential guys. I mean, it's just not
And they do.
falling in there.
They do. It's one of these things with what comes first, the chicken or the egg? What comes first, the inside game, and that leads to the open three, or the three-point shot that leads to the inside game? We always played inside out because the higher percentage shot is closer you get to the basket. So we haven't had anybody to really be a threat inside either. So it's just tough to get the shots, enough shots to the guys you want shooting the basketball, and that really hurts.
Right. Well, Goose, man, I appreciate your time. I definitely enjoyed having this conversation with you. I know it's Monday. We're all busy, so.
No. But before I go, man, I just want to say how proud I am of you and all the great things you're doing. I mean, man, it's, we older guys look at you guys, you younger guys, as our little brother, man. I mean, we're the family. I mean, and we look at you guys, and whether you know it or not, we're always looking to see what you guys are doing. And with all the real positive stuff you're doing, all the great thing you're working with kids and all these other things you're doing, man, I got to tell you, as your big brother, I got to say I'm really proud of you, man. And keep up the good work. Thanks so much for having me on your show. This has been a highlight for me as well. But keep doing what you're doing, your little brother. And I really appreciate being on with you.
I appreciate you, big bro. And it's funny you say that, because that's how I look, at the teams, that came after me as well.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That people don't understand. That's what makes Kentucky basketball such a strong tradition. And to hear you say that just definitely confirmed it for me, that's how everybody else pretty much feels after they come and go. And, everybody who's been listening, I appreciate you listening. Make sure you subscribe to the Burner Turner Show, Field the 68 Media Network. There you have it, from the UK Hall of Famer himself, Jack the Goose Givens. Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. You have a great day today.
Thanks, Wayne. You too.